I am reading from the book on Maria Simma called Get Us Out of Here. Maria Simma was visited by souls in purgatory. If you want to learn a little bit more about it, go watch videos part 1 and part 2. But I'm continuing today to talk about her chapter on prayer and fasting. Remember, she was being interviewed by Nikki Eltz because of her being so infamous about her visitations from these souls. So on the chapter on prayer and fasting, it says, "You mention prayer so often, I'd like to ask you about it. Why do you give it such importance?" Maria Sima says, "Prayer is what brings us closer to God. Look at it this way. When we have a friend, the first thing we do is give him the time and he gives us time. If we neglect to give our friends time, it will not take very long before we find ourselves completely alone and in many ways lost and in the dark. All right, once we give him time, we do two things. We listen and we talk. And if we wish to remain a friend, listening is far more important than talking. True friends, as you know, can gain much strength and support by merely being next to each other in silence. Prayer is most often simply being with God in silence, listening to him, observing and absorbing him. There is no one he ignores. And in prayer, we are given time to do our very best friend, the friend who gave us life. Would it not be appropriate to return to him just some of the time that he created and gave to us? I think it was St. Augustine who said that prayer is man's greatest achievement and God's greatest gift to man. He then asks, "What do you think is the greatest mistake that people make when it comes to prayer?" She says, "It seems to me that they rush to God only when they are in trouble or only when they think they need something. Prayers of petition are fine and are, of course, heard too. But we should be with God always, praising and thanking him for everything that he has given us and everything that he has done with us and for us. People are so ungrateful and in Western society have come to take so much for granted. And taking things for granted quickly permits greed and then hate to take over. The implied teaching, so prevalent in Western society today, that all men must have the same chance for a university degree and a big house and with 2 cars, is not with God's teaching. God gives his biggest secrets and greatest joys to the smallest among us. Satan promises power, influence, and success. God promises peace, joy, and fulfillment. The shallowest of all prayers is, "God, give me this, God, give me that." And back to merely human friend. How long will he stay with us if all we do is say to him, "I need this, give me that"? Very small children go through this stage in their social development just when they discover their own individuality. This is when we see them cracking plastic buckets over each other's heads, yanking the shovel away and throwing sand in the other's eyes. At this stage, discipline must be taught. Prayers must also include hello, thank you, I'm sorry, and I love you. So prayer has to be developed and learned? Oh, yes, it does. Developed and learned inside ourselves, where God then works the greatest of miracles. Truly prayerful people take nothing for granted and quickly see, hear, and touch the greatness of God in the tiniest of things, both internally as well as externally. In prayer, we bring to him everything inside us and everything around us. Only in listening does the child then learn how to talk. And this talk should also be developed between the child and God. If the child learns that God is always next to him, he will quickly learn that it is always loved and protected. Parents and teachers alone cannot do this fully. With God, a sensitive child can be devastated when it learns that its parents and best friends too make mistakes. Children who know of God find a balance and will be greatly strengthened. They are the ones who learn to communicate in love with all those and everything around them. Children who are denied knowledge of God will grow up in fear, which then leads them to the need for power, status, and material goods. This way, they will never enjoy the peace that God wants for all of them. We cannot blame the condition of the world today on God. Its condition is the fruit of our having gone away from him. Everything that worries and hurts us today comes from the fact that we have ignored him. Come back to him in prayer, and the results will be felt immediately. He is our only friend who never, never sleeps. So if prayer must be learned, does it then follow that we ought to start with small steps as a child does? Well, yes, exactly. As long as we remain very conscious of the fact that prayers too may never be judged. There's no such thing as a small or a big one, an A grade or an F grade. God remains God. And it is the true saints who humble themselves so completely in front of him. That is why Mother Teresa could and had to honestly say, I am a much greater sinner than you. What would you advise me to do if I have never prayed and want to start by speaking to God this evening? Turn off the television, ignore, no, unplug the phone. Go to your room, close the door behind you. Prayer is the only thing in the world with which we may and must be entirely selfish. Then be in silence and tell God that you wish to be near him. Do these on a regular basis and do not let Satan pull you away with all his me chatter. Then learn a little bit about Jesus, his holy family, his disciples. Constant and small steps by yourself in the presence of his total love. Then find yourself a picture of Jesus or a cross to put in the corner of your room where you found that initial peace and quiet. There you will hear him in the clearest. Turn your heart in his direction. Give your heart to him and only to him during this time. Start perhaps with 15 minutes and gently work it up to an hour. If you do this over a month, you will be amazed what peace and joy this alone will bring you. But I must warn you that attempts will be made to distract you from this and from him. Ignore these gently but firmly and simply continue with it. Then if you find the need to turn your entire life around, and the world is full of this today, go to a good priest or minister and tell him that you have enrolled in God's kindergarten and would like to continue this among others. In relation to God, every one of us is in kindergarten. Conversion means the changing of the heart. Conversion means stopping everything that blocks our way to Jesus. Then find a Bible and take this too into your selfish little corner. Give everything to God and to his mom, and you will soon arrive in the midst of peace. And there has never been a single human being in the world who somewhere in his heart did not feel the need for peace. The reason for this is that God himself has said, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And that experience, our soul being in God's peace, is in every soul to some degree. And the very best and quickest of teachers who guides through whom to reach him is his mother, who after all was also his teacher and guide. If the church that you are led to has ignored her or says that she is not necessary, then either ask the priest there to reinstate her or look further until you find someone who will help you with this. There are, for instance, Marian shrines or Medjugorje centers in nearly every state and country today. At these centers, you can ask to see her messages and take these home with you. Study them in your quiet home with God. But again, please do not go too fast. One message every 3 or 4 days is more than enough to meditate upon. Through what she tells us, come to Jesus slowly, just as all of us grew up slowly. Once you have taken these tiny steps in changing your life, you will, and I promise you this with all my heart, you will very soon realize how truly enormous in importance they really are. Do this with your heart and not with your mind. There are plenty of brilliant theologians who have yet to discover God in the simplest and purest of ways. Pretty powerful. Again, whether or not you believe that one can speak to souls from the dead, those words are very powerful on how we should talk to God. I know I myself am listening to it going, I need to start again. I need to start improving the amount of time I give to God. I need to change my Bible time. I need to add this, add that. because Jesus is speaking to us daily, and he just wants us to sit next to him and listen. I hope that by me reading these chapters to you, that you will draw closer to God, because after all, that's the whole point. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching yet another informational Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.